Know that Elon Musk is expected to leave the administration pretty soon as his status as a special government employee will expire. What do you know about when Musk will leave and then what happens to DOGE?
Well, we don't know the details, but I can tell you that I don't think any of us will miss him. And by the looks of it, it doesn't look like many in the administration will miss him as well, because as he's announced that he's leaving, and especially after his huge failure to buy an election in Wisconsin, I think the Republicans have realized that not only is he not an asset, he's an annoying liability for them and has caused constant chaos and destruction inside the federal government. And I'll tell you, many of my colleagues across the aisle also will not miss him as he leaves out the door. But it appears that he plans to leave within the next month. The formal end to his service as a special government employee ends in 48 days. If he does not leave in the allotted time, certainly there will be lawsuits because there is a set limit on how long you can serve. But none of us know what will happen to DOGE at that point. Many of the young people that were brought in as computer engineers and others for this effort were recruited by Musk himself and his allies. And because there wasn't a real theory of the case of how they were going to actually achieve any of their set out goals from the beginning, we don't know what's going to happen to the entire enterprise. And I think it's very clear that the administration's ready to move on, and they'll probably move the effort through OMB. And I think you can already see that this week with Russell Vought, the director of OMB, and OMB have released their passback guidance to agencies, and they're using that as a mechanism to cut the agencies now.
I remind our viewers as they listen to you on things you aren't aware of. You were on the DOGE subcommittee, and yet you're not aware of these kinds of things, being told that. Extraordinary. One thing that happened when you spoke on the House floor this week, you were railing against the recent and proposed cuts to the Department of Health and Human Services and Medicaid. Let's take a listen to part of that. Here it is.
Yesterday, I met with Rochelle Tittman, a mom of 4 who was diagnosed with cancer when she was 29 weeks pregnant 8 years ago. But by the grace of God, her family, and the medical advancements made possible by the HHS, by the National Institutes of Health, by the CDC, she is here today, and her youngest daughter, Ray, is in the 2nd grade. These are the people we are fighting for. This is why we are fighting back, and this is why we oppose this cruel agenda.
So look, Republicans have made numerous claims they will not cut Medicaid, but what does this new budget framework tell you?
Yeah, I mean, the Republicans themselves are infighting. It took them days and days this week to even pass a basic framework for the reconciliation bill, which is the centerpiece of Donald Trump's agenda. And that centerpiece is all about giving permanent tax breaks to his billionaire buddies and to large corporations. And to offset the costs, they're looking for quote unquote savings somewhere. And those savings are coming in the form of $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid. Republicans keep claiming, oh, we're not cutting Medicaid, but it's very clearly in the framework. It instructs the committee that has oversight over our health agencies to cut health funding by that much. So we know that that's their agenda, and part of why Republicans melted down before they passed the framework in the House this week is that the House Republicans said they were not going to vote for the bill unless they guaranteed that they were going to make those cuts. So anyone who claims that they're not cutting Medicaid is lying. Secondly, we already know that RFK is destroying the Health and Human Services Department. They cut and announced that they were going to cut over 10,000 jobs, and they have already cut 3,500 employees at the Food and Drug Administration. These are agencies that guarantee the basic health of everything that we use, from our cosmetics to our food to the medicines that our family members take. And they're absolutely decimating these agencies.
I want to pick up on that because you clashed with Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene at a hearing on restoring trust in the FDA. Let's take a listen to a piece of that.
The ability to get life-saving drugs to market, the ability to save American lives, the ability to get
the gentlelady's time has expired. Ms. Stansberry, the gentlelady's time has expired. No, you're lying to the American people.
I'm sorry, madam.
You are lying to the American
people need to understand their health is at risk, and this is a 5-alarm emergency.
So you made a supreme effort to get your point across. Why? What was important about it, and what is your response to Representative Greene saying that you're lying?
Yeah, one of the things that a lot of people may not be paying attention to is the mass firings that are happening at the Food and Drug Administration. And FDA is the agency that makes sure that our food and medicine is safe and that you're not taking snake oil that's going to kill you. And over the last week and a half or so, 3,500 employees have basically been given pink slips and told they're fired. These are some of the top scientists and medical professionals in the world. And the pharmaceutical companies are in a complete uproar. In fact, their stocks tanked the day after these announcements were made because their entire timelines and the ability to get life-saving drugs depend on having a functional agency. Now, they should be in front of the White House right now saying, what the hell are you doing? Because this is going to endanger the American people as well as the ability to get things to market. But they're afraid that if they raise their voices, that they're going to get knocked down around drug pricing and other things that they care about. And so that's why you're not hearing a lot of noise in the public sphere about it. But people in the medical field are completely freaked out right now.
What they say about him, they should be more worried about guarding our national security. And then two, this is potentially an act of war if something like this were to happen. So we have to make sure that we do everything we can to deter them and to prevent such a situation from arising.
Also, Trump shared this on social media on Wednesday, hours before he announced that 90-day delay on tariffs. And Democrats are now calling for an investigation into whether members of Congress might have engaged in insider trading. And here's your colleague, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
I don't think that it was a coincidence. I don't think that Trump just coincidentally said buy stocks and then shortly later made an announcement that dramatically inflated and dramatically raised a lot of these asset prices. And, I've heard murmurings on the floor that there may have been people that knew that this was coming.
I'm curious what you, sir, are hearing. Do you think this should be investigated, or the fact that Trump put this out there, and it was out there for the world to look at and read for about 4 hours, does that absolve any concern of insider trading?
No, it doesn't, because remember, the question is who had inside knowledge of the tariff announcement before the world actually knew about it, and did they trade based on that knowledge? And I think that there's ample evidence or ample suggestion to believe that an investigation is warranted. We need to figure out whether there was market manipulation and whether there was insider trading. But that's kind of scoping out. I think the bigger issue is I have legislation to ban the trading of stocks by members of Congress. That's what we should do. We can't allow members of Congress or anyone to trade individual stocks because they are always privy to some information that the public doesn't know. And in this case, of course, I believe that people did know, and I did hear similar murmurings on the floor. And I'm concerned that this further fuels the cynicism and distrust of the institution.
Incredibly, I think, harming to our democracy. This is all about Donald Trump and House Republicans making it more difficult to vote, and everyone should be opposed to the SAVE Act.
And then I want to talk to you about the revocation of these student visas. These are kids that are coming here to get an education. They're coming here on specific visas. By the way, just because Marco Rubio says that your status has changed doesn't make the status change, but it's giving kind of carte blanche to ICE and others to go and round up students for purposes of detention and deportation.
This is personally just incredibly offensive. Before I got to Congress, I taught at the college level for 10 years. I'm an educator. I've had thousands of students, including international students. Just here back home in Long Beach, we've had 6 students at a local university who've had their visas revoked. There are, of course, as you know, hundreds across the country. Many of them, and the ones that we're aware of here locally, have no idea why their visa was revoked. These are students who are here learning. They're contributing to the classroom. And as you know, Katie, international students actually make the learning experience better for all students, for American citizens, for students that are in the classroom learning from each other. That is why we have these international programs. And then some of these students go on to get advanced degrees and contribute back to our best hospitals, our best research institutions in the country. So this is really about Donald Trump. It's about Stephen Miller. It's about Marco Rubio. It's about their worldview that they want America to be closed off from the rest of the world. They want less immigrants here. They want less free exchange of ideas. They want less people contributing. And quite frankly, they want this to be a more white, non-ethnic country. We got to be honest about what they actually are trying to achieve here in this moment. And again, we should be pushing back on this. These students are here to make our country better. And that's what we should be doing, uplifting them and making the whole college experience for all students a better place.
So I want to switch gears because there are calls from your colleagues in the Senate to have investigations about what just happened this past week in terms of possible insider trading, market manipulation. And there are just allegations right now that perhaps something has happened. But what's wrong with conducting an investigation? What's wrong with getting to the bottom of how Marjorie Taylor Greene suddenly decided to invest in a stock that she'd never invested in before?
Exactly right. Look, I have questions. I want to know, why did Marjorie Taylor Greene make these investments, make these significant stock investments right before some of these tariff announcements? Who else knew about the decisions that Donald Trump was going to make inside the administration? Marjorie Taylor Greene made some comments. I think they're concerning. I think people should be investigated. And more broadly speaking, the Senate is right. Senate Democrats. We have to know if anybody benefited, if anybody had insider information on stock trades. We should absolutely know. And just as important, individual stocks should not be traded by members of Congress. It should be illegal. The members of Congress should not be trading stocks. I've signed on to legislation that would ban stock trading by Congress members. I do not understand why it's not banned yet. And so we have to not only just have these investigations, people shouldn't be afraid of those. And by the way, anyone, both parties, should be subject to no stock trading in the United States Congress.
This is what you want to see. You want to see Democrats fight back on the issues that matter. You want to see them fight back on the three big ones and then what builds from that. Remember, what have I said? Write in the comments. Pause the video and write in the comments. Say, what are the three things Christo says Democrats need to focus on? Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. But from that, a lot of other things grow. Like a lot of people talking about potential corruption in politics, where politicians and other top officials may be using information that they get in the capacity of their job, or just by virtue of the fact that you're associated with powerful people whose decisions can move markets, to make lots of money. I won't legally accuse any individual person of insider trading as because that's a literal crime of insider trading. But clearly there are members of Congress, there are presidents, there are staff of all of those people who may get information and then use that to make a lot of money. Or just, Trump, many of you have suggested this, crash the market and then say, I'm going to cancel the tariffs, which will cause the market to spike, because of course it would. And then in that spike, people can make lots of money. A lot of money. And so why does that matter here? Because the sort of people who do that are the ones that will weaponize the wealth they earn to further perpetuate a more inegalitarian society where, among other things, innocent people are deported, rights are trampled, and the rich use their power to take away your Social Security, your Medicare, and your Medicaid.